Five friends gather inside a cramped, windowless space of roughly 249 sqft, equivalent to 7 pyong. Having gorged themselves on pork belly to the point of near explosion, they now find themselves completely stranded as a ferocious blizzard rages outside. Compounding the issue, the only toilet gets fully clogged. It becomes an utterly stifling nightmare. Our ancestors endured this brutal reality for months during the Ice Age at -40 degrees Fahrenheit, equivalent to -40 degrees Celsius, within shelters constructed from mammoth bones. Their diet relied heavily on mammoth meat. The problem stemmed from the stench of urine and feces produced by processing and expelling this high-protein meat. The ammonia-like smell acted as a death signal, luring hungry predators straight toward the dwelling. Going outside risked death by freezing. Staying inside invited attacks from predators or illness, a genuine catch. 2. The basic bodily need to eliminate waste, crucial for living, paradoxically became a deadly danger. Let's collectively explore how human beings managed to withstand this harsh irony of life. What caused the most fear for Ice Age humans, saber-toothed felines, and cave lions? Undeniably, those were terrifying. However, the real fear came from an unseen source, namely, the daily need to dispose of human excrement. Currently, one flush transports everything away with water. But 20 millennia ago on the icy tundra, there were no drainage systems, septic tanks, or bathing facilities. The home built using mammoth bones and skins was no bigger than one room. Within this tight space, a family of as many as 10 people huddled to get through the winter. Temperatures outdoors dropped many degrees below zero. Any exposed skin would get frostbitten within minutes of venturing outside. It goes without saying that they would never let waste build up inside the shelter. But in that severe cold, making a long journey each time to dispose of waste was anything but easy. Even a minor delay in removing waste would quickly fill the confined area with stench. This went beyond simple annoyance. The droppings of people who subsisted mostly on protein-dense mammoth meat would have created a far worse odor than anything we can imagine nowadays. This intense smell presented a major issue for a particular cause. For predators with an extremely sharp sense of smell, the odor of human waste was a definite signal of where their prey was located. Anyone who owns cats knows this behavior. A cat carefully burying its feces in sand after going to the bathroom is using a survival strategy to hide its location from threats. Ice Age people likely behaved in the same way. They carried spears and used fire, but facing a wild beast one-on-one gave them zero chance of surviving. They were the ones who had to hide every trace, yet their own excrement was giving away their location. As soon as the option to flee disappeared, the smell of feces became an unavoidable problem. The origin of that terrible stench was their diet. In the Ice Age, Europe consisted of an endless, continuous tundra terrain. Due to seasonal and regional constraints limiting plant-based food availability, the meat and fat from large animals became the main source of energy. Of the large game such as mammoths, reindeer, bison, and wild horses, mammoths were deemed the most prized catch. After being hunted, one adult mammoth, which weighed several tons, could feed a whole tribe for a considerable period. In the winter months, the diet relied heavily on meat and fat. The problem stemmed from the side effects of high protein and fat intake. Metabolism of protein produces ammonia in the body. Typically, the liver transforms ammonia into urea, which is excreted through urine. But when protein is consumed in excess, ammonia levels also rise in the intestines. Current studies indicate that maintaining a high-protein diet can lead to fecal ammonia concentrations approximately twice the usual level. Had the meat portion of the diet been as extreme as that of Ice Age populations, their waste smell would likely be much stronger than present-day feces. Imagine that unpleasant odor permeating the pit house. Naturally, they wouldn't have just left waste inside the shelter. In fact, numerous Paleolithic dig sites feature designated areas where garbage and waste were collected. Yet, in the severe cold of many degrees below freezing, ventilation would have been greatly limited, leading to quick stagnation of indoor air. High ammonia concentrations lead to eye discomfort and coughing, and extended exposure can damage the respiratory mucous membranes. More urgent than health issues, however, was the fact that scavengers such as hyenas can detect blood and decaying flesh from several feet, equivalent to several meters, away, and will approach. With such an acute sense of smell, the powerful ammonia scent from human waste could have been a sufficient lure. By staying silent in the pit house, humans were unintentionally revealing their location. Moving was the perfect answer. In the hunter-gatherer period, waste was barely a problem since groups continually followed the herds, letting nature decompose it. The difficulty arose in winter, amid blizzards and temperatures well below freezing. Venturing far would result in freezing to death, so people had to stay put. They had to endure the winter for months in a cramped bone and pit dwelling. This posed a physical challenge. A family of 10, even after just 1 month, would generate roughly 132 pounds, equivalent to 60 kilograms, of feces and approximately 50 to 200 US gal, equivalent to several hundred liters, of urine. The smell prevented storing such a huge amount inside the hut, yet throwing it just outside risked contaminating nearby fresh water when the snow melted. But going on a long journey each time to dispose of waste carried the risk of freezing to death in -40 degrees Fahrenheit, equivalent to -40 degrees Celsius, temperatures. As they stayed in place for extended durations, the former strategy of simply relocating no longer worked. In order to survive, it became necessary to manage and isolate waste and pollutants. Surprisingly, the deadly extreme cold tens of degrees below zero paradoxically acted as a savior. When waste touched the ground, it instantly froze solid, becoming like stones. Even nowadays, livestock manure can harden into stone-like chunks during winter. The same would have been true for Ice Age human waste. Right after defecation, feces turned into hard frozen masses, and urine similarly changed into ice. This natural freezing yielded 3 advantages. First, it reduced odor. Smell results from the spread of volatile molecules in the air. Yet as temperatures drop, the speed at which those molecules evaporate decreases significantly. The odor likely did not disappear completely, but it probably did not travel far enough to attract predators. Second, bacterial metabolism was slowed down. Below freezing, bacterial reproduction slows down markedly, and some bacteria die off during the freeze-thaw cycle. Of course, many bacteria and pathogens remain alive within the ice. When temperatures go up, they can become active again. Nonetheless, throughout winter, the risk of infection was much lower. Third, disposal became easier. Imagine cleaning slippery feces with your bare hands. Unpleasant, right? But if it's a frozen solid lump, the situation changes. One could flick it away with a stick to roll it, or pick it up using a piece of leather to move it elsewhere. Evidence of this spatial separation is found at the Dolní Věstonice site in Czechia. At this site, living areas are separated from refuse storage zones, with waste areas showing piles of bones and ash. Scientists think this reflects efforts by ancient humans to keep garbage and pollutants away from their homes. Of course, this method was not perfect. The Ice Age cold effectively suspended excrement in a frozen state over winter. But when the thaw came, the dangers of smell and pathogen contamination in water sources would reappear. Since frozen feces eventually thaw, the next challenge remained. Where should the excrement be placed? Particularly concerning was the drinking water source situated in the path of meltwater runoff. The Ice Age presented a threat as deadly as predatory animals, invisible waterborne infectious diseases. If feces contaminated the drinking water supply, severe intestinal infections such as dysentery or typhoid would spread. In modern times, contaminated water can make an entire village sick within a day. During the Ice Age, with no antibiotics or medical facilities, an outbreak could potentially wipe out the whole tribe. The problem arose not in winter but in spring. As the feces that had remained frozen all winter began to melt, the pathogens that had survived inside them become active again. Meltwater flows downhill, and if it mixes with snowmelt or streams used for drinking, the chance of waterborne disease skyrockets. Therefore, choosing a place for defecation was a life-or-death decision. The basic rule was simple. Excrement needed to be placed downstream from the wall, still from the water supply, or far enough away. Modern wilderness survival guides convey the same principle. One should place the latrine several dozen yards, equivalent to several dozen meters, away from the water source and at a lower elevation. Although prehistoric humans likely lacked precise knowledge of the distance, they probably arrived at comparable insights through experimentation. If they frequently noticed that individuals who drank water near refuse got sick, a natural taboo against consuming that water would have developed. Analysis of ancient fossilized feces exposes an unsettling truth. Since early humans already endured numerous, though flawless sanitation was impossible, the absence of spatial separation and learned rules would have resulted in a much higher infection burden. Eventually, Ice Age inhabitants likely developed pragmatic water management strategies similar to current hygiene guidelines. They probably instituted a guideline to place the latrine downstream of the drinking source or in an isolated location, and never to utilize snow or ice from that area as drinking water. However, managing only external dangers was not enough. The regular hearth fire within the home and the strange animals close to the community affected hygiene in unexpected manners. Your support will help address difficulties. Was simply discarding trash far away and protecting the water source sufficient? Ice Age people took an additional measure here. They addressed sanitation issues on two fronts simultaneously, inside the pit house and outside. Let us initially inspect the interior. A fireplace was consistently positioned at the center of an Ice Age pit dwelling. Fire was used not solely for heating and cooking meat. Because smoke had an unexpected role, wood smoke contains multiple chemicals that possess antibacterial and insect-repellent qualities. In fact, in traditional societies, smoking subjecting objects to smoke has been widely utilized for pest control and food preservation. The fireplace smoke in Ice Age homes probably produced a similar outcome. The smoke's harsh atmosphere would have repelled pests such as ticks on necks or arms. Moreover, the ashes from the fire were found to be useful. Wood ash is extremely alkaline, which makes it effective for eliminating grease and dirt. Until contemporary soap appeared, lye produced by soaking ash in water acted as mankind's cleaning agent for thousands of years. Prehistoric humans also employed ash to clean dirt or meat fat from their hands. Now, let us turn our attention outside the pit dwelling. Unfamiliar guests lingered near Ice Age communities. These animals were wolves. Wolves probably started hanging around human camps due to the availability of food. Remaining bones, innards, organic waste, and garbage from hunts turned human settlements into a simple food source from a wolf's viewpoint. A leading hypothesis proposes that this interaction resulted in the domestication of dogs. Among the wolves, those wolves that were less afraid of humans stayed close to the camps and slowly transformed into dogs while coexisting with people. Significantly, wolves may have served as scavengers during this process. By eating organic trash, they could have reduced pest breeding grounds and helped keep settlements cleaner. The hearth smoke and the scavenging creatures around the camp are viewed as components of a hygiene system that eventually reduced the settlement's pollution sources. However, Ice Age people did not consider feces merely as bothersome refuse. Astonishingly, they derived crucial survival materials from this disgusting waste. Urine might be regarded as a kind of alchemy. Let's start by examining the matter of care after defecation. In the Ice Age, since soft fabrics, much less toilet paper, were not available, what did people employ to clean themselves after defecation? A 2026 study analyzing archaeological dental calculus reveals a surprising discovery. Dental remains from Paleolithic humans include not only plant fibers but also birch tar, a naturally occurring antibacterial agent. Scientists suggest that birch tar may have been used in various ways, as an adhesive, as a covering for tool grips, and possibly for treating wounds or maintaining hygiene. There is no direct proof of the exact materials used for post-defecation cleaning. However, it is likely that moss, leaves, and soft grasses were used, and some people might have discovered through trial which plants possessed antibacterial qualities. What is even more astonishing is the use of urine. What happens when urine is gathered instead of being thrown away? The urea present in urine decomposes slowly, producing ammonia. This fermented, or aged, urine becomes a strong alkaline liquid. Why was that important? Converting animal skins into garments necessitates a tanning procedure. Raw hide is rigid and susceptible to decay. To make it soft and stop it from rotting, the protein structure must be changed, a job that the ammonia from fermented urine was perfectly designed for. In history, tanning hides with urine was widespread. In ancient Rome, public containers were used to collect urine, and during medieval times, European tanners immersed hides in fermented urine as part of their workflow. Documents show that tanning with urine continued in Yorkshire, England, until the 1800s. There is a strong likelihood that Ice Age people used similar methods. The technique of gathering, fermenting, and applying urine for treating hides could have been invented. For Ice Age people, waste was a tool that cut both ways. If mishandled, it drew in predators and transmitted illnesses, presenting deadly dangers. Yet when properly managed, it turned into an essential survival asset, possibly the earliest form of chemical engineering by humans. These sanitation practices, developed on the Ice Age tundra, are they just historical leftovers? Interestingly, they reflect the survival rules used in modern Antarctic research stations. Research stations in Antarctica, cut off in freezing conditions, also rigorously separate waste to safeguard water supplies. According to environmental regulations, waste handling is so strict that all solid waste has to be transported out of the continent completely. The segregation by distance that ancient people grasped instinctively is now a standard in contemporary bases. What would have happened if Ice Age communities had not implemented these habits? Even if they endured the cold, diseases and scavengers would have overpowered them, causing their extinction before any civilization could emerge. This morning, did you utilize a flush toilet that whisked away waste with a single button press? Behind that simple taken-for-granted moment lies a brutal struggle for survival ancestors, risking their lives in -40 degrees Fahrenheit, equivalent to -40 degrees Celsius, winds, just to manage a single bowel movement. If today you felt any appreciation for your peaceful toilet experience, please subscribe and like. It greatly supports video production. See you in the next video.